to Pass Alive. Thank you all for tuning in. 'Tis the season to rejoice, celebrate the spirit of giving, and also nostalgia on this channel. And tonight we are doing just that with an old store circular that I picked up a couple years back. One that you may remember. You may have seen this in a weekend recap a year or two ago from one of my favorite stores of all time, now defunct, Hills department store.
According to legend, little folks know Hills is where the toys are.
Hills Toy Layaway, just 10% down, a small service charge. Lays away toys, little and large. Hundreds of toys. Express layaway too. So layaway's even easier for you. Remember, Hills Toy Layaway. One reason they're different and why they say
Hills is where the toys are.
At low prices every day.
Hills went under in the late 90s. They were actually bought out by Ames. And then Ames went under several years later. It's pretty tough to track down old store circulars like this because, as you can imagine, a lot of these got thrown away. So we have a Hills circular from what I believe to be 1988. And I apologize to all you sports card fanatics. This is a non-sports card video, but it is going to dabble in pop culture as this channel covers a wide range of all things nostalgia. So we don't have an exact year on here. I'm kind of a little bit late on the date here, November 27th through December 4th. I actually kind of forgot that I had this. It was in my toy room, and I was like, it's time to pull this out and relive the past once again. And what better way to do that than with a custom Hills candle. Now, Hills, I'm sure most of you guys remember it if you're on the East Coast. I don't think they really branched out into the Midwest at all. Very little, if so. But you see on the sticker here, popcorn, pretzels. Think of an older version of Target. Target kind of came in and stole their business model, I feel. But Hills, as soon as you walk in, the snack bar just had the entire place smelling like ices, popcorn, pretzels, hot dogs. It was absolutely phenomenal. And Hills was very well known for their toy selection. They had multiple aisles of toys, much more so than department stores have today. So we're going to get into that tonight, but in the spirit of Christmas and Christmas past, let us light this candle. Let's dive into the year 1988. If for some reason you think that that's the wrong year, I'm basing it off of what I found inside of here and when these toys and things came out. Please let me know in the comments. But on the front of the circular, we have a nativity scene and a child that appears to be very deep in thought with a special message from Hills. A child that is pondering the meaning of life. And down below here we have some random knickknacks, I should say, wrapping paper. We have batteries, and we have the Memorex tapes, the 3-pack. Remember, always wanting those. Those were a necessity back in the 80s and 90s to record all of your favorite cartoons as a kid. We're having so many episodes of Batman the Animated Series and Gargoyles and everything else recorded on those. I won't spend too much time on the fashion of the late 80s. We have some blouses and skirts. We definitely can comment on the retroness of some of these sweaters and appreciate those. And take a look at the pricing too, because the pricing will definitely probably shock some of you. But this is the fashion of the late 80s that almost looks like Stephanie Tanner. Imagine that. And to check out this sweet throwback Pepsi sweatshirt. Definitely still rock that nowadays. The days of Jordache. Remember having a Jordache book bag in elementary school. And we get to the jewelry. The jewelry, we have some handbags, watches. Hills is great for gifts and more And our everyday low prices prove it. They are not lying about that. Phenomenal prices compared to everywhere else. We have some Garfield memorabilia here, and Alf, which had debuted in 1986, so it was a relatively new show whenever this circular was printed. But I know what we're all here for. We are all here for the toys. At least I think so. We have Lee. And back in this time, I was probably rocking Bugle Boy. I'm sure most of you guys were. See jerseys. Taltics. I don't remember that company at all. Rad Rat Club. That's a pretty sweet outfit there. And some more rear ends in the Levi's. And also some robes. But this is what we've all been waiting for, the toy section. Like I said, Hills is very well known for their toys. And boy, did I have some of this stuff, and this is going to be freaking awesome. I have not looked at this in a couple of years, and even then I don't think that I really went back and looked over it thoroughly. So we're doing that now together, but the toy section beginning, the slogan was Hills is where the toys are. That couldn't have been more true. But the Fun with Food Kitchen Center, back in the late 80s, this is like, if you got one of these, you were the coolest kid on the block. Those were so much fun to play with. I had something like that. I don't think I had that exact play set, but I did have something like that, which I would end up going on to turn into part of my card shop that I had in the early 90s, Johnny's Card Shop. And the places that were set aside for fruit, I had single cards there instead. The Little Helper cleanup carts, something else I did not have, but I definitely had this, and I still see it from time to time when I go to antique malls. Big reason why I love going to antique malls, because I'll walk around and I will see random things like this, and it will just take me back. These memories just go directly back to that time period. Things that I have long forgotten about, like the Little People's School. Had that as a kid, and I freaking loved it. Played with it every single day for several years. It was $25.86. I came across one in an antique mall in Maryland a couple years back, and I had completely forgot about it altogether that I ever owned one. And that feeling is something that you can't put a price on. Moving on, we have Tenders from Fisher-Price, Nosy Bears, and Garfield hang-ons that you would stick to a window of a car, I'm guessing, more than likely. Talking See and Say, I remember those as well. I don't know if I really had too many of those. Easy Bake Oven, made by Kenner. Kenner also made so many of these awesome action figures and toy lines that we all love today, still. But not the debut of the Easy Bake Oven. This has been around for many, many years when this was printed. We have Legos. Alfie 2. That was definitely a toy that I had back in the late 80s, and I loved it a lot. I still come across those at times, and it takes me back. $22.58 the Alfie 2 costed back in 1988. The Light Bright set and the Planters Greenhouse for $20. We have the Perfect Prom Maxi. So some Barbies and other dolls. The Jukebox Music Shop play case. See, when I was a kid, I definitely thought stuff like that was really cool because they didn't make really in detail play sets for guys. Not necessarily. I mean, they had like the Real Ghostbusters Firehouse and things like that, but they had a lot of random stuff that I thought was really cool. Smuggler Charms bracelet, Fashion Star Fullies, and Wish World Kids playset. Some things that I don't remember seeing as a kid, but also was not looking for that stuff. Moving on, we have some bikes. We have the Star Stage for kids, voice and light pedals, made by Fisher-Price. A train set for $54.86, and some remote controlled trains made by Tyco. Down below, a personal favorite of mine, probably back in this time, Pee-wee's Playhouse. I watched the show religiously as a kid, every single day. I never had any of the figures though as a kid. And you can still obtain those for relatively cheap. Back then they were $3.97 each. Most of those nowadays are really within like the $30 to $40 range to buy them on cards. Some are a little bit more. We have some different games here. A pool table, $35, and a mini ping pong table. But my personal favorite part of this circular, as I'm sure you can imagine, is right here. My favorite toy line of all time and favorite cartoon ever, The Real Ghostbusters. This is whenever the Fright Features series came out, and also Haunted Humans, which are not featured on this page, along with the Ecto 2 vehicle. I had most of those as a kid. I definitely had the Ecto 2. I know I had the Egon. Egon's tie would always break. It is an anomaly. If you have this figure from your childhood and the tie is not broken, then consider yourself a very rare anomaly, because that just doesn't happen. They were $5.58 back then. Nowadays, figures are about $15 a piece, so nearly 3 times what they cost in 1988. But absolutely love those figures. I love the contrast of these older photos too. The black background, it definitely takes me back. We have TMNT. TMNT debuted in the end of 1987. Also another reason why I believe these came out in 88, because Fright Features were introduced in 88. So further makes me think that this is the year this was printed. We have a plushie for TMNT. I actually do have one of those right next to me. I have Donatello. $13 back then. Those really haven't gained too much value over the years. They're about double that or so now. We have Army Gear Machete Observation Tower. That's actually pretty sick. I feel like I remember when that came out, but I never had it. And of course, G.I. Joe. We have the Phantom Stealth Fighter for $20, and a few different figures there. I forget his name, but I had him, and I definitely play with him a lot. 3-pack color racers. We have Nintendo trophy figures, and of course, the debut year of starting lineups. So starting lineup was created in 88, so that means that this had to have been from 88, the Christmas of 88. And it's absolutely astonishing how starting lineup figures is really, outside of 1988 figures, the debut year, they don't really have any value. If you have Michael Jordan, you have Barry Bonds, Canseco from 88, those will have value, but anything after that, not really so much at all. Very, very surprising. All these years later, they just never kept their value. Next page, we have a bunch of board games. Starting lineup, Talking Baseball. I feel like I definitely had that as a kid. We also have some Tiger handheld electronics here. Pinball and football. I think my brother had the pinball game back then. But how many of these games did you guys have? I'm curious to know in the comments. Please let me know. Mousetrap. My brother had that in his closet. I remember playing that. It was like a treat for me if my brother would agree to play that. Pull that out of it. He had a huge walk-in closet, which I was very jealous of. Lots of stuff in there. And of course, big brothers always have so much cool stuff in their room. I'm sure some of you guys can relate to that. So I just wanted to see all of it. And he had Mousetrap in there. We had Bed Bugs. We would play those games. Dizzy Dinosaur. I saw that at an antique mall recently. I almost bought it, but I never had that game as a kid. Crossfire, of course, a very intense game. I'm sure some of you have seen me play that in recent times. They've re-released it. And they've re-released a lot of these older games by Milton Bradley over the years. We have some VHS tapes, TMNT, and several others. $9.97 back then. But here's a list of all the games and the prices for them. Mousetrap was $11.97 back then. So they probably almost doubled in price since 1988. We get to some Christmas trees and wrapping paper, etc. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on that. We're here for the toys. We have some plush slippers. Those would come in handy right about now in Pennsylvania. It's about 30 degrees. And some stylish cowboy boots. The only thing those are missing are spurs. And some bedding. Let's get into the games, though. The next page, Hills has one of the biggest selection of video game cartridges anywhere, and they definitely did, too. Nintendo games, 25, 86 to 49, 86. And of course, we have Ghostbusters on there. Probably one of the hardest games ever made, imaginable. If you guys have played that, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. Punch-Out. I don't think I ever actually beat Punch-Out. My brother used to beat it, and I would watch him play. I could get pretty far in it, but I don't think I ever actually beat Mike Tyson. And that was before they changed the game to Mr. Dream's Punch-Out, after the scandal unfolded of Mike Tyson. Rambo, several other ones in there. Contra, we would play that together all the time, and I'd always die on like the end of the first level or the second level. Never made it that far. Just was not very good at it. And we have some Sega cartridges here. The Sega Master System, which came out in the mid-'80s. I don't remember seeing that as a kid. I remember the next system that would come out afterwards. Control stick, video game organizer. And we have some Nintendo accessories here. Video shooter, cordless light gun, and the joystick. The next page we have some Atari games. Never really played too much Atari. I remember my uncle had one at his house, and he lived in Connecticut back then. So I remember occasionally watching him play, or maybe even playing it myself. But I don't recall ever actually having one in our household growing up. Ghostbusters for the Atari. But some pretty bad games are made for that system, like E.T., etc. But for the time, it was revolutionary when it was released. Some Atari accessories there, and then we have Commodore 64, $129 for that setup. It was a reduced price at Hills. Next page, we have a VCR. They were almost $200 back then, which is pretty crazy. And some VHS tapes. We have E.T., Dirty Dancing, Platoon, and Good Morning Vietnam. Along with some sound systems. The sweet wooden grain pull-out cabinet for your cassette tapes, cordless phones, and even walkie-talkies for $9.97. Another toy I had as a kid that I cherished, the tape recorder and mic from Fisher-Price. I had that. You could sing along to it. It was like more so karaoke. I want to say you could record yourself as well, but definitely would play with that for hours on end when I was a wee lad. And some other different electronics here. Kids computer, electronic body wrap. I don't recall ever seeing that. And the Socrates educational video system. And we have some keyboards too. And I think we've kind of finished up the pop culture section of this circular. We got some clock radios, but I feel like every household in America had something that looked like that back in this time. You got an electronic shaver, some cameras, Kodak, and flashlights, air compressors, etc. A grill, a drill. There's the clapper. It took the world by storm when that was released. And a random haunted porcelain doll. I guess it's kind of weird they put that on the fine china section, but not in the toy section. But I guess that's just what they did. So some porcelain and dishware, and some furniture even in here. So Hills really had everything. They really had it all. Entertainment center for $50. A beanbag chair. And a flip-out sleeper sofa. That thing's pretty sweet. A sweet gaming couch there. Everything was wood grain back then. Even a wood grain microwave. I love it. A couple microwaves and some other cookware and a sewing machine. And some different hair stylers. We finished the circular with just some randomness, candy, chocolates, nuts, and some makeup. But as you see here, this was for the holiday season, but there's no date. So I'm going to say this is from 1988, and I absolutely love to go back and look through these. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that maybe some of the things in this video jogged your memory, took you back to some of those golden moments. Have a great holiday season, guys. Keep the past alive.